silent forest at night. The air is heavy, the trees stand like dark guardians, and then suddenly you hear it, a low, haunting call, the voice of the owl. For centuries, that sound has sent shivers down the spines of wanderers, not just because of its eerie quality, but because of what the owl has come to symbolize in cultures across the world. The owl is not just a bird, it is a symbol, a messenger, a creature that, more than almost any other, sits on the threshold between the mundane and the mysterious. In esoteric traditions, its wings carry far more than feathers. They carry wisdom, secrecy, and occult knowledge. From the temples of ancient Greece, where the owl was sacred to Athena, the goddess of wisdom, to the mystical lodges of the occult in Europe, where it often appeared as a symbol of hidden truth, the owl has remained a constant presence. It is the animal that sees what others cannot. It peers through the darkness. It does not fear the night. It owns it. Why has this creature become such a powerful emblem? To answer that, let's step back in time. In ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs depict owls not as charming or cute, but as guardians of the underworld. They represented both death and protection, warning, yet guiding the soul as it moved from one realm to another. Across the Mediterranean, the Romans tied owls to omens. An owl flying over the Senate was recorded as a sign of doom, yet paradoxically, it was also the creature that whispered truth to those wise enough to listen. In esoteric symbolism, this duality is everything. The owl is a paradoxical animal. It can be a bearer of light and darkness. In alchemy, it might appear as a guide through the nigredo, the black stage of transformation, when the material self is dissolved so that the spiritual self can be reborn. Think of it as the perfect emblem for initiation. You must first walk through the shadows, and the owl is your companion. In secret societies like the Freemasons and the Illuminati, the owl is not simply an animal. It is an archetype. Because the owl sees in the dark, it represents those who can see what the uninitiated cannot. When the rest of the world sleeps, the owl remains awake. That is the essence of occult knowledge. It is hidden, nocturnal, and not for everyone. If you have ever looked at the symbol of the Bohemian Grove in California, where powerful figures from politics and business once gathered in secret rituals, you will notice something striking. The central figure in their ceremonies was a giant owl. Officially, it represented wisdom, but for many observers, it was far more sinister, a marker of hidden worship, of elites claiming their connection to forces far older and darker than modern politics. Across the world, in Hindu and Buddhist traditions, the owl also has its esoteric role. In India, it is tied to Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity. But in a deeper sense, it represents the darker, hidden side of wealth and knowledge. It reminds us that abundance is not only golden and shining, it also lurks in the unknown. In Japanese folklore, owls are sometimes lucky charms and sometimes ominous figures, depending on the context. Again, we see the theme of duality. Among Native American peoples, the owl was deeply respected but also feared. Its call could be a warning of death. Yet shamans often invoked the owl spirit to receive messages from the other side. In these traditions, the owl is not simply a predator bird, it is a bridge between realms, a guide through the unseen. What makes the owl so fascinating in esoteric symbolism is that it embodies the journey of the seeker. Imagine yourself in the darkness of ignorance, unsure of what lies ahead. The owl is the one who guides you through, whispering, "Look closer, see what others overlook, understand what others fear." That is why, in countless occult texts, the owl perches on the margins, reminding us that knowledge is rarely obvious. It is hidden, obscured, guarded, and only those with the courage to embrace the night can find it. There is also a psychological layer. Carl Gustav Jung, the great psychoanalyst who explored archetypes and esoteric symbolism, might have seen the owl as a representation of the shadow, the part of ourselves that dwells in the unconscious, that sees what our rational daylight self cannot. To face the owl is to face ourselves. To listen to the owl is to accept that truth often comes in unsettling forms. And yet, that is the beauty of it. The owl is not a comfortable symbol. It doesn't tell us what we want to hear. It tells us what we need to know. That is why it appears in tarot decks as a companion to the High Priestess, the keeper of hidden knowledge. That is why it perches silently on ancient manuscripts in esoteric art, guarding the secrets of alchemists and magicians. That is why it keeps appearing century after century in every culture that dares to look beyond the surface. Today, it is easy to think of owl symbolism as mystical decoration, a tattoo choice, or a quirky emblem on a coffee mug. But the truth is, this bird has been a companion to the esoteric seeker for millennia. It has stood as a warning, a guide, and a keeper of secrets. And if we listen closely, even now, it still calls to us. So the next time you hear that haunting hoot echo through the night, don't dismiss it. Ask yourself, what is it trying to tell me? Am I ready to see what others cannot? Am I willing to walk into the darkness with the owl as my guide? Because in the end, the owl does not just symbolize wisdom. It symbolizes the courage to seek it, the humility to accept it, and the strength to live with it. And maybe, just maybe, it is also an invitation to pause in the chaos of modern life, to recognize that true wisdom rarely shouts. It whispers, it waits, it hides in places most will never look, in old myths, in forgotten temples, in the silent wings of a nocturnal bird. In that way, the owl is a challenge. Are you willing to slow down, to listen, to walk where others fear to tread? That is the test of the seeker. Consider how often the owl shows up at the edge of human imagination. In literature, Shakespeare used the owl's cry as an omen of tragedy. In Macbeth, its screech marked a murder in the night. In fairy tales, the owl is the wise advisor, perched in the trees, offering guidance to lost heroes. In modern fantasy, from Harry Potter's Hedwig to countless role-playing games, the owl has become synonymous with magical knowledge and loyalty. The symbol continues to evolve, but the underlying thread is unchanged. The owl sees what others cannot. And this makes sense when you think about its natural qualities. Biologists will tell you that the owl's eyes are massive compared to its body. They are fixed in place, meaning it cannot roll them like we do. Instead, it rotates its head, sometimes almost completely around. Its ears are asymmetrical, allowing it to detect sound in ways no human could. In other words, nature itself shaped the owl into a being that perceives differently. That biological reality is the seed from which its symbolic power has grown. Humans looked at this strange, night-dwelling bird and thought, it sees what we cannot. And in that thought, mythology was born. This connection between biology and symbolism is crucial. The owl did not become mystical by accident. It became mystical because its very existence challenges the limits of human perception. When we weave it into our esoteric systems, we are acknowledging that there are creatures and truths that exist beyond the daylight of ordinary understanding. So, when you next see an image of an owl on a crest, a coin, or a book cover, remember that you are not just looking at a bird. You are looking at a mirror of our deepest hopes and fears, our search for wisdom, our fascination with the unknown. You are looking at the silent guardian of mystery itself,